Don't you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love? Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. And now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Welcome to Friday, for you on Friday, on Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris. Before we get into our latest example of why fact-checking is ridiculous and unserious, or at least in its present form, now would be a time for you to share the video and tell people, oh, you may want to listen to this, because I can't get, I'm not going to replay the whole video and go over this, but I will tell you, we're gonna take a trip down memory lane with Pfizer, and we're gonna tell you some stuff that I've never told you before. And there's a reason why we were able to tell you when the emergency or the emergency use authorization date was before big outlets like the New York Times, Washington Post. And there's a reason why we knew about their new antiviral experimental pill before anyone else knew, and among many, many other things. All right. So there's a lot, this video from Project Veritas, a lot of questions it raises that allows me to get into this and tell you things that I know that occurred and transpired, and who's telling the truth and who's not, that we've never discussed before. So instead of going over the video, we are going to talk about how, honestly, guys, even with a media blackout, the viral record that they broke for themselves and others is really astonishing. And it tells you there's an appetite in the public for this stuff, that people are sensing perhaps that, that they weren't the entity that they were portrayed to be. And we have a lot more information on this that we have never shared. So now would definitely be the time to say, oh my God, what bomb is the People's Pundit going to drop? How political are these people? What is the stability, like the mental health stability of the people that operate now? What is perhaps, if not, it may not even be arguable at this point anymore, it is the most powerful pharmaceutical company on Capitol Hill. All right. So right now, and perhaps ever, you look back at some of the they are scandals, but you look back at some of the evils that were perpetrated on the American people by pharmaceutical companies, and you think immediately of companies like Purdue Pharma, who essentially took an entire region of the country, their pain and suffering from public policy that hurt them, and exploited it for profit. Through opioids and other dangerous substances. Just a study last month or a month and a half ago, shock, surprise, ADHD is not a chemical imbalance, right? So all of those, for those of you like me, you grew up in the 80s, the 90s, maybe your friends were like stuffed with Ritalin and Adderall and all these other drugs by doctors who were getting kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies telling them, these are safe drugs to take, and that they're going to get a Hawaiian cruise out of the deal, or a cruise to the Caribbean or the Mediterranean, while your kid gets poisoned with things that he didn't need, right? Or he or she didn't need. All right. And thank God my father was never like that, because I was a rough kid. And honestly, thanks, Pop, for not listening to some of those idiots. A hyper kid who's lashing out at the world is not the same as you need to stuff somebody with Ritalin, right? So, but a lot of other parents did not do that, sadly. So we're going to leave one segment for that. It is one that is going to get into this topic, but it's not the point of the segment, all right? The point of the segment is to show you the ridiculousness of what we all are told to be fact checks, credible fact checks. And it's really sad because I'll give you a little bit of history here. For those who pre-2016, for those who were partners with Google news publishers, whether you were a small independent company like People's Pundit Daily, or you were a big company, you partnered with Google News. They created the publisher platform. And those of you who never had any real problems with your publication, you did well. You didn't pump lies. You weren't pumping crap. You got what was called claim review markup, structured data that allowed you to be recognized by Google as somebody who could publish claim reviews. So if there was something that simply was not true, if you followed technical and general guidelines, you were able to implement this if you were trusted enough. And you could show people, and those of you who may have been with us a very long time, when I was the editor of People's Pundit Daily, you may remember the original claim review and what it looked like in a Google search, where it was a card, a claim review card that would come up and it would say, claim, this is the claim. Here is the citation, right? Who said it? And then ultimately the rating, and then they could click on it and take a look at your methodology behind why you ranked it a certain way. It was cool in the beginning, and 8 years ago, it had value. But then sadly, as with so many other things, in 2016, it was hijacked by this so-called news consortium of credible and trusted, that's the Trust Initiative, to be able to implement their agenda going forward based on the lesson that you've always heard me say, the lesson these people learned, the cartel learned from the election of Donald John Trump was not to listen to the perhaps legitimate grievances of working people and other Americans who feel like the general direction of the country has left them behind, even hurt them, maybe is attacking their way of life. No, that was not the lesson they learned. The lesson they learned was do not ever lose control of the flow of information again. My old friend Don Smith, my buddy, he used to have this clip by Mika Brzezinski all the time because it said it all. She said, no, we're the filter. We're the ones who have to take the information raw, filter it the way we want it, and present it to the public. How dare Donald Trump and how dare these alternative media companies do that? Chris Cuomo on CNN during WikiLeaks, he had a comment that was perfect. I mean, he even lied to his viewers and said it was illegal to go through WikiLeaks yourself. We are the ones who digest what is coming from Julian Assange. And then we submit it to the public in the context that we want to submit it to them or to you, which of course is the antithesis of what Julian Assange was trying to do with WikiLeaks, right? It was raw information, unfiltered, unbiased, unedited. Here it is. Take it as it comes, right? So anyway, it got distorted and perverted by the Trust Initiative and the Online News Association, which never followed its own rules. And if you were not a part of it and you didn't have what were called the trust indicators, then you were excluded by search engines. It was an early way for these search engine optimizers and news aggregators like Bing and Google. And Bing actually was not as bad as some of these other ones. But Apple and Google, to be able to reduce the traffic of the Breitbarts of, at the time, the People's Pundit Dailies and others. And speaking of James O'Keefe, who we're going to talk about today, if it wasn't for James O'Keefe and his whistleblower, I would never have known the full extent to how badly they wanted to blacklist us for simply giving you an alternative to Nate Silver in 538. That was the real sin. Never was a claim review on us. Never was a fact check written. Never got a community strike in Facebook. All of these social media companies began to add technology that would scroll the top of your header, you're the metadata in your website. And if you didn't have structured data following the Trust Initiative, then you got put in a box, folks. We did it. We actually complied, and it still didn't matter. Facebook, they went ahead with their, whatever you want to call it, dethrottling, removing your exposure. That's why we had to evolve, sadly. Once upon a time, we could publish a rather unsexy report like that came out this morning from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Personal income sucked, but of course it would be more technical than that, 0.2%. Expenditures fell by 0.2%. Consumption, spending, we are 2/3 consumption economy, fell by 0.2 in the month of December, the holiday month. It's a very bad news. It's very bad news. That's all. But we would immediately publish it. It would go out to the aggregators, the Google News. And Google News, for instance, we would have tens of thousands of referrals within an hour. After 2016, that was gone, despite following the Trust Initiative. No journalists followed their guidelines that you know that are considered credible, trusted journalists. None of them, especially when it came to social media. If you published something that was not true and could be subject to a claim review, the standard was take a screenshot of it, delete it. Why delete it? So it doesn't go out into the ether and get shared anymore. And then post a screenshot of what you previously said with a correction. Here we are like idiots trying to follow these rules. Nobody followed them. The one that really, and I brought this up last week, this report last week, the one that made me realize that this was really fully a joke was when CNN published the ridiculous, and it was untrue, claim that Donald Trump Jr. had advanced knowledge of WikiLeaks, so says these messages we seized. And that was not true. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks had teased it out before, so everybody already knew what was coming. They did not follow the Online News Association guidelines. They did not follow the Trust Initiative guidelines, the Trust Project. And so it was obviously a joke. And claim reviews were changed dramatically after this period. All of a sudden, if you were not left-wing news, if you were not corporate media, and you were considered alternative or right-wing, right? Because that's alternative really means right-wing with them in the consortium. It means right-wing. Doesn't matter if you're right-wing or not. We were a data journalism website. 78% of the stuff we published had to do with economic indicators. The vast majority of the rest was public policy, polling, and elections. Opinion pieces were syndicated. So it's not like we were publishing something other people were not. Most of our columnists were economists. We had people on the right and the left, libertarians like Dan Mitchell. That didn't matter. So claim reviews then were limited to people that they knew were neocons or, they were not right wing. The Weekly Standard. The National Review crowd. Because they could count on them to be anti-Trump and anti-small R Republican. All right, so they knew they were going to be part of, Con Inc., whatever you want to call it, or Big Con, as Steven Crowder's calling it. They knew they could count on them to be like that. So, a very small handful of these they're not alternative, very small handful of these right-wing sites, none of which really being alternative media, by the way, the Weekly Standard, the National Review, these were not alternative sites. They had long been part of the DC Wall Street crowd for decades. And sadly, it became something that we see it as today. Something that's fundamentally unserious. And they tried during Hillary Clinton's election to weaponize fact-checking even back then. Do you remember her during the debates? But it wasn't in stone. There was no real plan, so it didn't work. There were no structured data tags in your website making sure that you were being blocked or deplatformed or whatever. All right, so you remember her during the debates going, fact checkers, go get them on this. We need your help here, fact checkers. Trump is lying. Abortion is a great example. When he said, Hillary, you support ripping babies out of the womb up until the point of birth. No, I don't. I never said that. No Democrat supports that. Well, of course they do and did. But that didn't stop PolitiFact from heeding her call for help because she knew that was very damaging. It just wasn't in place like it is now. And now it's obviously, organized and part of the information cartel. So we all know about the Project Veritas video. This is a director of research and development being caught on video here, undercover video. He claims, and we're going to talk about this more in context, he was on a date and he was doing what every normal guy does, quote, every normal guy does, lie. While I do not contest that men lie when they're on dates, Normal men don't make a habit of meeting some, like normal. You used the word normal. Normal men. Like when I got out of the army and raced back to like try to, people got to get to know each other again. And Laura and I had known each other for many, many years since we were kids, right? But you have to get to know people again, right? So we were technically dating, even though we were, I'd obviously been, sweethearts for a long time. It wasn't, my first indication wasn't, let me sit down with this girl and lie. Like, I'm going to tell, and I can hear her in the other room going, no, right, like, absolutely not. Maybe normal, full of men like you lie to women on your first couple of dates, and by the way, I'm using the word women. He's obviously not, that's not relevant to him. All right, so let's get into Newsweek. Immediately, the media realizes that one of the central problems here for Big Pharma, who they all took money from, understand all of these news outlets took money, and Pfizer was the biggest proponent of this push. All right, so they recognize that the central claim that is a serious problem from that is the gain of function issue and the mutation issue. I'm not going to get into whether or not, I don't want to get too much into the actual issue itself. I'm talking about the standard of journalism here because, of course, our theme is, why do people believe things that aren't true? It's a big part of it. They're considered to be credible. They're claimed, they're fact checkers. No, they're part of the information wing of the cartel. That's what they are, first and foremost. All right, so let's look at this. You don't need me on the screen. I'm trying to stop this video here. This is the aggregation by MSN, which is interesting in and of itself. And why is it interesting? Because this is one of the aggregators we talked about. I just brought up in this entire thing about who is credible and who is not, according to the Trust Initiative. And they even use the term hugely viral here. And that may be the only thing Mr. Norton says or writes as to be true in this, or to be certain. All right. So fact check, aggregated by Microsoft Bing. All right. Bing News. That is really the predecessor to this. All right. Does Project Veritas video show Pfizer is mutating COVID? Honestly, is that headline itself even true? Or is it relevant? Is it, are they creating, and I always warn you guys about politicians with this. I love Governor DeSantis, but he did this to us. All right. Are they refuting something, accurate or not? Or are they fabricating and or embellishing something or obfuscating something so that they can refute that instead of refuting the actual, claim that's in question here? All right. A hugely viral video that purportedly shows a senior Pfizer employee talking about COVID-19 vaccine experiments has exploded across social media, gathering millions of views and sparking speculation. And again, I think this is a big deal and you have to excuse me, I'm drinking my Field of Greens right now, but it is important that, you realize that this is not even close. Project Veritas has gotten more hits on that video than they have on any other video. And as far as, some of the things we've tried to look at ourselves, an organization within their same parameter, with their same following, so far we have not been able to find a news report from a comparable source that has exploded like this. So they quite possibly could be setting records in their, beyond even there are some outlets with supposed bigger followings than them, certainly more revenue than them, that never get viral videos like this. And that includes outlets like CNBC, nothing came close. Another one we in the Newsweek itself we looked at, or I looked, myself personally looked at before. I haven't found anything from Newsweek that could rival this. Hold on one second. What I don't want to do is spill that. Okay. So, released by Project Veritas, the video includes what it says is undercover footage of a conversation detailing COVID mutation projects designed to preemptively research potential new strains of the virus before they may find root naturally. Okay, Project Veritas doesn't say it's undercover footage of that. We know Project Veritas provides undercover footage. That's not in question here. What is in question is what came out of there, and this is no small guy on a totem, way down the totem pole. This is a director of research and development in his area. This is a big deal. And they're saying, well, this is what Project Veritas says it says, or purports to show. This is what he said. The only question is whether or not Pfizer, who has gone dark, can release a statement or respond to this in any credible way. And it's beyond the point now of this kind of fact checking. It's beyond. There are now, at least the last I checked, at least 2 very powerful senators who are deeply disturbed by this report and are asking the company questions that they're going to have to respond to. So Newsweek can try to run cover. Fox News can do a blackout, all but Tucker. Tucker Carlson is the only person worth watching on that channel. That is not a news organization anymore. They're not, and they are no better, barring Tucker, they are no better than CNN. Roger Ailes, for all of his faults, at least he understood that there was an entire, at least half of the population that was not being represented by media outlets, and everything that they accuse Fox, who rose to prominence on these accusations, everything they accuse CNN and NBC and ABC and CBS and NBC, all of these people of doing, they are no better now, with the exception of 60 Minutes, Monday through Friday. And actually, it's not 60 minutes. You have to take away the commercial time. Let's call it 40 plus minutes, 40 something minutes, because in between, you may see commercials from this very company. You may see, because Fox took money to do that. Fox took money to run what is unprecedented marketing for something that did not get past emergency use authorization, which under law is not allowed. They got around it. Anyway, in the wake of this, many social media users have started to claim that the video proves that Pfizer is conducting these experiments actively. The claim, multiple claims on social media posted on January 26, 2023, suggest that Pfizer is currently mutating COVID variants in order to produce vaccines for future sale. The claims are based on the Project Veritas video, also posted on January 26, 2023, which on Twitter alone has been viewed more than 8.6 million times. It's double that now. You better take another look. Among them was a tweet with more than 61,000 engagements from Project Veritas CEO and founder James O'Keefe, who wrote, quote, Pfizer director on camera saying they are mutating, in quotes, COVID-19 virus to increase infectiousness. Unreal, unquote. To those of you who've watched the video, do you see any issues with his statement? Okay, let's move on. The facts. Okay, this is incredible that they would even title this section the facts. Go through this entire fact check before we even go further. Go through this entire fact check and tell me what's missing in this fact check. What's missing is a statement from Pfizer. There isn't even a mention that they attempted to contact Pfizer and ask them whether the claims portrayed in this video are accurate. By the way, it would go a little something like this. Hello, in case you haven't noticed, your Director of Research and Development for Strategic Operations and mRNA Scientific Planning, his name is Jordan Tristan Walker. He's been caught on an undercover video by that wascally conservative journalist outlet, undercover journalist outlet, Project Veritas. That guy, James O'Keefe. Can you tell us whether the statements he made are true or not? Then you go and write your fact check. It's not there. What is there is the go-to smear of James O'Keefe and his felony conviction, so-called left-wingers are so full of crap. People don't deserve a second chance because James O'Keefe over Washington Post, over that whole issue with the Washington Post years ago, and over the Get Out the Vote operation with Barack Obama in 2008, years ago. James O'Keefe is what? Supposed to be on like welfare for the rest of his life? He's not entitled to make a living for himself? 15, 16 years ago? It's not something, he's not credible. Or worse, the people that are on video, what they are saying isn't credible because James O'Keefe had some felony conviction 15, 16 years ago. You will see this in every single report about Project Veritas that claims to be doing like the deep dive over what the video purportedly shows. And then it's followed by, we weren't able to get all of the footage from Project Veritas. On multiple occasions, I know for a fact that Project Veritas, in fact, used to offer these people the entire footage. The reason they would say, look, there's so much airtime here. It's not deceptively edited in any way. There's so much airtime that we don't, go over them holding hands and talking about how many men they slept with. We leave that part out. And we get to the relative parts of the conversation. They used to offer people the entire amount. Same thing happened to David Daleiden, by the way, when he got those Planned Parenthood people undercover. He offered news outlets from Fox News to the Washington Post the entire stretch of film, folks. The entire reel. But they do this because this is the crap they do. And then they go over a couple of, claim that Representative Ilhan Omar was linked to a cash for ballots voter fraud scheme. An investigation by USA Today found no evidence of such a scheme, right? An investigation by USA Today is supposed to be more credible than the person who was volunteering for the campaign, making those allegations. Right, so this is just where they go from here, So tried to dupe the paper into publishing a false story about former Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, Roy Moore. Well, right, because that's their job, to make you look stupid. To make the so-called credible elements of the information cartel look to be what they are, which is not credible. Then they go to PolitiFact, who I just told you published, first of all, they did one of me personally, where even Snopes had to correct them. That is not what he said over what is a change of address flag. I said there were X number of change of address flags in Fulton County, Georgia alone, and PolitiFact took that and ran with it and said, he said there are this many of fraudulent ballots in Fulton County alone. No, I did not say that. And even Snopes had to say, that is not true. PolitiFact and PolitiFact Wisconsin ran to Hillary Clinton's aid during the very example I cited to you before. So do you see what they do here? You see the game? Anyway, you can go through and say, whatever the facts are about its latest video, some of the claims that it is inspired misrepresent the content of the video itself. The video shows a conversation between an unidentified reporter and an interviewee that Project Veritas identifies. They identify him as this. They do? That's not who he is? You didn't go through his social media posts, which it took me 2 seconds to do on LinkedIn, and I found an old thing from Blogger that I was able to verify that Project Veritas put out. It took me, Laura, what did I take, 45 minutes to verify this stuff earlier this morning? 45 minutes? I saw when the guy was still in school. I was reading things about him. It's him. One thing I found slightly misleading is what he had said he aspired to do was work with evil big pharma. And yes, on the internet and social posts, it is being misconstrued and misrepresented. There's no doubt about it. He meant, and if you looked at the full context of his blogger post, what he said is, yes, I'm an evil capitalist. Doing what, if any, know anything about academia, is joking about something he knows can kind of get him in trouble. So you're not supposed to be a capitalist. You're supposed to be a raging Marxist when you're in these fields and you're at the universities he was at. But he said, no, I want to make money. And I don't think there's anything wrong with making money while working on life-saving drugs, life-saving treatments. That's what he said in full context. Let's be fair to the man. That's what he wrote. He did not say that he was trying to develop all these evil things to hurt people. That's not what he's saying. So I'll be flat out right there and say that's being misrepresented. But the claim that only on the word of James O'Keefe in Project Veritas can we identify Jordan as, in fact, the director of research and development is crazy. Not only is he who Project Veritas purports him to be, he fits right in with that entire team and his superiors, which we're going to tell you more about. You saw the follow-up video where O'Keefe tries to ask him questions in the coffee shop. He goes nuts. He loses. He's not mentally stable. He's under pressure and duress. He knows this is a problem for him. So you got to try to give the guy a little bit of leeway. You got to, give him a break. His life is not fun right now. But this history, like this idea that this is some huge global conglomerate, it must be ran by sound, stable people who have high ethics and are able to put their personal feelings aside and can control their emotions. You better rethink that. And I'm going to give you an example in a little bit that's going to blow your mind. What is Pfizer doing, I guess, to optimize, the vaccines now? Anyway, he goes on to say, and this is the heart of the claim itself. We're exploring, how the virus keeps mutating. Well, one of the things we're exploring is why don't we just mutate it ourselves so we could focus on preemptively develop new vaccines, right? So why are they talking about this? They're talking about this. It's a concession that they're in fact not able to keep pace with variants of mutating. The mutations of variants. So the thinking is, why don't we force it to mutate the way we want it to, so we can then preemptively develop a vaccine we know can guard against it. All right. It's not even what I think is the most damaging part of this conversation, or not even damaging. And it's not an indictment on Pfizer. I know for a fact that Pfizer told the Deborah Birxes, the Faucis, I know they told them why they have never developed a vaccine for COVID or SARS like viruses in the past, why it's never been done, and why it has been frowned upon. They were directed to do it anyway. So they're a private company. Their game is profit. If you tell government all that you can, it's not on you when they tell you to do it anyway. Now, it can be, you can have culpability if there are risks involved, which is what Dr. Maloney told Tucker last night. That is the problem, and I'll leave that for people in that field to decide. But he wants you to believe now that he was lying to impress a date. Unfortunately, there's a problem with this. This is not the first time Project Veritas has caught somebody in a relevant position, nor from this company, making the same claim. Is that mentioned in this Newsweek fact check? It is not. Did they get an answer from Pfizer about this? Maybe they can easily put this down. They did not. So how on earth could you do a fact check, folks, if you didn't even contact all the parties involved and investigate the claim itself? What they go on to do here is play games with the term gain of function. Well, I got news for you. Marco Rubio ain't playing with that. He's not hearing that. They jump right to, well, you know what the implication here is. They're trying to get into gain of function again. And let's talk about what the website Nature says, the scientific journal Nature. At its most innocuous, mutations that give a gene, RNA, or protein new abilities or expression patterns. I don't know. It's a little bit different, the interview replies. I think it's different. It's like this. It's definitely not gain of function. Okay, well, again, the point of this fact check is to run cover for this and obfuscate all these meanings. It's not to definitively be able to say or rank with any definition, with any certainty, unverified. And then all these other claims they get into, and oh, by the way, we talked about this, last week when it came to pregnant women. What the hell are you talking about? You can put all of this crap in this fact check all you want to distract people away from the central claim. But the fact of the matter is, you did not contact all the parties involved, and you did not look into whether or not the central figure in this video, who is no low guy on the totem pole, is telling the truth. You didn't call Pfizer, and if you did, they didn't answer. And even worse, if you did, you did not include, we tried to contact Pfizer, but they did not respond to our request for a comment. This is unbelievable. But would we expect anything else from Newsweek? This is Newsweek's definition of news. This same company ran this article yesterday. Okay, just yesterday. So this is the standards that Newsweek has to live up to at their news organization. And by the way, this is presented much in the format of a fact check. Did Matt Gaetz have an affair with male staffer? What We Know by James Bickerton. Ladies and gentlemen, you have got to be kidding me. And here, by the way, is Adam Schiff. An ad from Adam Schiff. Is anything in my browser history going to tell you that I am a target for Adam Schiff's ad? I mean, really, folks, really. All right. For those of you who have not heard the story, Matt Gaetz is branded an allegation and he is having an affair with a member of his staff that is, quote, totally false and libelous. I'm reading this to you on purpose because I'm trying to show you the similarities and the differences. Same outlet. We're talking about Newsweek. One is obviously on the Project Veritas video. The other is on, their favorite congressman to hate, Matt Gaetz. The allegation presented without evidence by Rebecca Jones, the Democrat candidate, the Democrat candidate House Republican Gaetz defeated in November 2022 to secure re-election, has gone viral on social media, receiving more than 6.5 million views on Twitter alone. On Tuesday, Jones tweeted, Matt Gaetz is believed to be having an affair with his press secretary, Joel Valdez, according to 3 independent sources. And then when asked for it, by the way, Gaetz' office and his wife had not responded to requests for comments. This is not Gaetz' first affair, nor is it his first with a man, she wrote. She follows up with. The tweet was widely shared, received more than 8,000 retweets to reach millions of social media users. Notice the tweets up here. Okay. Asked by another Twitter user to provide more concrete info. Jones claims she had observed their intimacy, observed in quotes, their, again in quote, intimacy in a moment they thought was private after our debate. She later said she had, quote, had 2 camera crews filming me, unquote, at the time, but didn't provide any video evidence. All right. So this is the tweet. I observed their This is supposed to be this woman could have been in Congress. Yeah, I know it's a Republican district. She had no chance. She had snowball's chance in hell to beat Matt Gaetz. How do I know? Because I polled that. And in full disclosure, when he had his issues over whether or not it's relevant, over whether or not he's had, relations with people he shouldn't have, I polled for him to see, how the district thought about it. And at least I'm being honest here and I'm disclosing that to you. But I observed like a freaking schoolgirl, dude. What are you in middle school? Intimacy in a moment they thought was private after our debate, but didn't speculate without proof. Didn't want to speculate without proof. Okay, she didn't want to speculate without proof. Anonymous sources now, which she refuses to disclose as proof. That's her proof. So now she supposedly it was filmed before, but now we can't have the footage. And she had heard about it, rumors. Let me tell you something. Rebecca Jones has no insight into the inner circle of Matt Gaetz, especially at that point. It was a little bit hectic, I'll be honest with you. It was a little bit hectic. He had a transition to get into. But there is no way that she had any insight from anyone close enough to Matt Gaetz and the individual in question here, who they actually, based on this flimsy, libelous claim, they shouldn't even have wrote the name of this gentleman. None of this should be taken with any degree of seriousness at all. Why? Because you want to bring up the history of James O'Keefe? The 15-year history of 15-year-old history of James O'Keefe. This is recent history with this woman. This woman recently and took responsibility for it. She has a history of doing this. All right, but anyway, let's get back down here. So Newsweek and she later didn't provide. Jones declined to name her, quote, independent sources, unquote, when contacted by Newsweek, saying, quote, they work in Gates' office and fear for their jobs. There is no way in hell. Folks, I'm telling you. No way in hell. I just don't believe it. That anyone working in Gates' office would go to this woman to tell him about these things. Not anyone who would actually have any direct knowledge of this so-called affair. All right, no way. All right, hold on. I mean, we were talking, Laura, you should pop in and say that if you want, but she said, it's like, again, what others have been accused of. We're going down this road again with projection. And she personally has not, been accused of this. Frankly, if you ask me, she's been accused of worse. And
yes. I just find it amazing, though. I'm just so over the projection that keeps on coming and coming. It's like, how many times do they have to try to re-gift it and say, no, a Republican did it? But yet we all know about several cases on the Democratic Party that have done it, let alone, what's that guy, Wiener, whatever his name is. I mean,
sorry, I had it muted.
Yeah,
Schiff's friend was Buck, Ed Buck, if we remember. Supposedly very close with this man. This is a man who had a long history of finding what I want to say vulnerable. I really do, because poor, homeless, young African-American men who were addicted to drugs or wanted to party, this old, rich, white, elitist liberal, and he would find them on the streets, bring them in, inject them with drugs, and then sexually assault them. And the man eventually, after his protection from the Clintons and the Schiffs of the world, just couldn't protect him anymore. Eventually he got busted for it. But, we've seen this with these staffer, scandals. There's always got to be a very high burden of proof, or, the politicians will obviously try to deny it at first until they figure out what people know. But right, this idea, that this could be floated as a serious article based on this woman's word and supposed anonymous sources. My point is, they spend the entire time in the fact check trying to discredit Project Veritas. And what do they do in most of this article? They try to poke at Gates and bring up as many negative aspects to Gates as they can. They'll give you the negatives on her, on Rebecca, but they're not using the point of the story to say, watch, you'll get there. We're going to get there. Let me continue. Right. In a statement to Newsweek, Gates' office fervently denied the allegations, commenting, the thrice fired, indicted, politically defeated, mentally unstable people shouldn't be considered sources by serious media. Mrs. Jones's statements reference no sourcing or evidence in her defamatory posts, unquote. Yeah, what about Booker? We've been down this. When I forgot her name now. It's a woman, actually. when she was accused of smoking pot and partying, Laura, with the congresswoman from
You're talking
California.
about the one that she made her staffer comb her hair and she gave
Yes.
her what, an encyclopedia or something?
No,
Or a book?
That's I think Gillibrand is the one who threw
Oh,
the-
sorry, I'm combining. But
Now, this is
point
from the
proven.
House of Representatives, and Gates actually defended this woman. Look at the comments. People know who I'm talking about. But when that story broke and people actually had credible information, it was treated very delicately with kid gloves. Even Matt Gaetz at the time had said, no one's personal life should be, the subject of stuff like this anyway. I don't care if you got her dead to rights. I don't like this stuff being the subject of attack stories. But the truth is, people knew about that affair and those parties, and it wasn't just affair. I mean, the drug use. I mean, people knew about this for a long time. There were photos of it. So it was still treated very differently than how they're treating Gates. Get this allegation against Gates now based on an anonymous source from a nutcase. This woman is a nutcase. It's unbelievable. Folks, rewind to the Florida primary last summer. Do you remember when she won? And I said, one of the headlines here nobody's even talking about is that Rebecca Jones actually won the Democratic nomination for District 1 and will face Matt Gaetz in November. Let's get on to who she is. What are they referring to? I think she goes on to say, we hope Miss Jones, they go on to say before we get into it, we hope Miss Jones reforms her life after paying restitution and completing the court-ordered community service following the last set of crimes she took responsibility for. Yeah, understand, Democrats actually nominated somebody while she was still under the terms of her plea agreement. All right, so any insinuation that Congressman Matt Gaetz has been starting relationships with staff is totally false and libelous. All right. He kicked her, before, got nearly 70% of the vote, which is more than the people who wanted to vote Democrat on the generic ballot. So she was a worse candidate in this district than a generic Democrat would have been. And I know because I polled it. Right. Earlier in January, I'm not going to get, this has nothing to do with Gaetz being one of the rebels to stop McCarthy, grinding the election of the speaker to 15 ballots. I mean, you got to be careful. A video of McCarthy confronting Gaetz when everyone was hoping they'd fight, remember, to make Republicans look bad, got 1.6 million views. Do you see what they're doing? This is what I was talking about before. And then finally we get to who is Rebecca Jones, but it's not even the punchline of the story. It's not the end of the story. She first came to prominence in 2020, true, while employed as an analyst by the Florida Department of Health, when she clashed with superiors and the administration of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over the presentation of coronavirus data. No, that's not what happened. She lied about Ron DeSantis fudging the data. She said that the administration was forcing the Department of Health to lie about coronavirus data. Jones was removed from the data team that created the dashboard. Remember the dashboard for Florida, folks? Then fired for insubordination. She filed a complaint for wrongful termination. The media was on her side. You remember this, guys? But this was rejected by the Florida Office of the Inspector General in May of 2020. And they described her allegations as unsubstantiated, unfounded. Newsweek's being nice here. They went to town on her. They called her a liar. She was a liar from start to finish. It doesn't end there. Their investigation actually turned up evidence of her wrongdoing. In December 2020, the police raided her house, confiscating electoral equipment after coming to believe she had hacked into the Florida Department of Health system. In January of 2021, she was arrested for, quote, suspicion, quote, illegally accessed the system, unquote, and she sent out internal messages after being removed. On December 8, 2022, she accepted a deferred prosecution agreement under the terms of which she admitted guilt for the charges, agreed to pay $20,000 in investigation fees, perform community service, and see a mental health professional at least once a month. That's the story there. But it's not for Newsweek. Who's Joel Valdez? Why would you even name this gentleman based on this? Based on a tweet from this nutcase. Folks, the media was on her side with this. They were propping her up as a hero. And then the story fell apart. She prompted an investigation that actually uncovered her own wrongdoing. That's the kind of idiocy you're dealing with this woman. That's how she discredited herself. That's how stupid this woman is. That's how mentally unhinged she is. I think we really, and again, I'm going to try to get into it today. We're almost through an hour already, just trying to show you the difference here. But we need to have a conversation about the mental fitness in this country of people who are in charge. We're going to talk about one with a certain pharmaceutical company in a bit. It is a problem. And yet most people with the Mr. Rogers mindset go through like, they wouldn't be in the position they were in if they were crazy. Rebecca Jones received the Democratic nomination while still doing the terms of her plea agreement. She fabricated allegations against Ron DeSantis. She tried to breach a system she no longer had. Well, she did breach a system she no longer had authority to be in. Valdez, who studied at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, had been Gates' communication director since April 2021. He started in Gates' congressional office as an intern in January 2020 before joining his team as a press assistant the following March. In February and March of 2020, Valdez served as the, quote, war room analyst during Donald Trump's presidential election campaign based at campaign headquarters. When approached for comment, Valdez referred Newsweek to a representative for Gates' congressional office. Why would you want to comment? You think it's serious enough to print that? First of all, you leave that really for last. The only correction in the story is that Valdez studied at it but did not graduate. I mean, this is the credible information cartel that we're all supposed to believe are the ones who write legitimate fact checks. I don't even know how you treat those two stories anywhere near the same. If she had some kind of evidence or proof, she said proof. Her word on 3 anonymous sources is proof. Folks, if that's the modern left's definition of due process, we have a very serious problem. And you know it is. 2 words, Brett Kavanaugh. Hell, you can accuse a nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court, who is a highly respected at the time justice on the most powerful court of appeals in the country, based on the word of, let's face it, a woman with a very long history of psychological illness and no proof whatsoever. You can accuse him of serial gang rape based on that. That's the modern left's definition of due process. Wow. Incredible. All right. When we come back, we're going to get more into that. I got to leave some time for discussing the voter file analysis, but this all very much links together. So, we'll leave question time and the voter file analysis time for the end. I guess that's probably the order that's best to go in, so it all makes sense. Okay. In the meantime, we'll take a real quick break to have a word from our sponsors. All right, as always, like I said before, to personal income, that yes, follow her on Twitter I talked to, she's like, is sucked a technical word? Yes, suck is a very technical economic word. If you didn't see the news today, expenditures were down, personal income barely rose. So again, we're going to see slinkies in the supply chain if this keeps up. And we'll get what we got last year. God willing, we won't, but you know how it is. We're in a bad spot. We have droughts to worry about, other weather events to worry about, inflation. And yes, the policies of the mentally ill we call politicians, they're all pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. And that's why survival food is more important than ever. Do what Laura and I have done. Create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits for your family. It's not ordinary food. This stuff is good for 25 years. Hand-packed in a family-owned facility right here in the US of A. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, and they stack easily. They have different, delicious, very delicious lunches, breakfasts, dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. Go to 4Patriots, the link's on the screen, 4patriots.com/TPP to get your 3-month survival kit. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus 10, and I'm telling you, very useful free gifts and free shipping. Those of you who got it, you know what I'm talking about. Everything is worth something. You know, you can get these things and they're like, oh, you'll get these many free gifts. And it's a crap. It's not. They're called 4Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4patriots.com/TPP to build your own stockpile today. And I say this all the time when I do this, but I'm 100% serious. That's the best deal for sure. The People's Pundit 3-month survival kit is the best deal. Those 10 free gifts that you get, you could get something that you're looking at their website, like a lighter, a stove, right? A stove kit, water purification, a solar powered water purification thing. It changes. And so you may get that. So if you're going to get that 3-month kit, do that first. Afterwards, though, if you're looking at stuff on their website, you want to go and check it out and buy other things, use the promo code Laura's got on the screen right now, TPP10 at checkout. That's TPP10 at checkout, and that will give you 10% off your entire site-wide order. All right, so that's my advice to you doing that. And, you know, like I just said before, I was just getting my healthy dose of it. I don't go a day without it. Sometimes I even do 2 now, all right, because, I mean, it can't hurt, right? It literally cannot hurt. It can only help. Brickhouse Nutrition. Whether you want to drop the pandemic pounds that you got left on, or you want to drop the remaining holiday pounds, or you just want to get healthy and you're looking at all these ads for weight loss pills and fad diets, we've been there. We've done that. They don't work. You know what does work? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables each day. Do that. The weight will fall off, folks. But you'll say, Rich, I don't like vegetables. I'm not a fan. Maybe you don't even like fruit. I know people who don't like fruit. Not a fan of either. Or who the heck can prepare 5 healthy servings every day of fruits and vegetables with their meal? And that's true. And that's the problem we ran into. And that's why I want to talk to you about Field of Greens. Science-based backed formula, specific fruits and vegetables that you won't find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism. Now, I'm 41, folks. That matters to me. So you burn calories faster and you toss the weight in a healthier way. And the Field of Greens is the only brand that's backed by a better health promise, and which you can read about on the website. But tell you right now, you'll look healthier fast, you'll feel healthier fast. But the real proof comes when you go to your doctor's appointment, your next doctor appointment, and they say, you've lost weight. What are you doing? Keep it up. Or this reading's better. And that's where the proof is in the pudding, bottom line. So let's get you started with 15% off your first order. Go to fieldofgreens.com. Again, fieldofgreens.com. Use the promo code TPP. Obviously, the TPP, folks, and all of these promo codes stand for the People's Pundit. Easy to remember. Fieldofgreens.com. Use promo code TPP and get 15% off your first order today. All right. And I got this cool little thing. That's what I drink it out of. I used to drink it out of just a cup, and I kept, but then I decided I can get more water intake with this than just a small cup of water. So water is very important. I constantly drink water all throughout the day. I'm one of those people, I'm just like always thirsty. I don't have like diabetes or anything. God knows. But I mean, I'm just one of those people who know you're supposed to drink a lot of water. Just like you're supposed to eat 5 healthy servings of fruit and vegetable each day. But nobody really has the time to do it. Well, I'm trying to combine both of those requirements. Middle age sucks. Tell you right now. Right, Laura? Not having a good time with it. I don't like it. I just don't like it. All right, so we can get rid of these 2 crappy attempts at fact checks by Newsweek, and we can move on. I feel like I'm forgetting something here. You want to place? I don't know if I should. I mean, I'm deeply concerned again with the mental health of this gentleman and the position he's in. I'm also looking at this. I mean, it is New York City, so you shouldn't be surprised. But if you watch this video, all right, you will see that he doesn't feel like the media has the right to ask questions because it's him in the same manner that if it was you or I, we'd have him parked out on our front lawn. And guess what? There would be nothing we could do about it. Here, this could be felony imprisonment, what these people at this establishment help him do to James O'Keefe. And in fact, the police at the end of the video say that if James O'Keefe was still there, they would have arrested Jordan Walker, the employee, the director, Pfizer director. So if O'Keefe would have stuck around, he said they always call the police on him, right? And he's even told me that personally. It happens every time. Every time the subject of a video gets approached later and for the follow-up, they always call the police as if there's anything that can be done about it. But in their world, there should be. He says he's a victim here. I'm just someone who's trying to make the world better and offer life-saving drugs. He's a victim here. He can even lay his hands on you. And you're still the one at fault when you defend yourself. That's what happens in this video. He can take your property and destroy your property, but you don't have a right to ask him a question. It happens in this video. He has a meltdown, folks, of epic proportions. He is literally on the ground with tears in his eyes at one point. Why are you doing this to me? This is not a healthy individual. This is somebody who will put his own belief systems ahead of everybody else. He'll put his own ideology ahead of everybody else, ahead of core values that we're all supposed to be living by in this society. We have a social contract. The First Amendment, the right to press, is one of them. And by the way, again, immediately the shopkeepers go to move to lock. Why are they locking in James O'Keefe and his crew? Because that guy called the police. And he's saying, get away from me, get away from me. You don't have a right to record me. While at the same time denying their right to leave the establishment, or not be there against their will. So he's keeping them there, but he doesn't want them there. It's great, folks. This just doesn't make any sense. And I'm willing to cut the guy slack because I'm sure his life really sucks right now. But you are playing with the big boys here. You work for a company that has a tremendous amount of power. You are involved in projects that made them this powerful. In other words, as prior generations used to say, if you can't stand the heat, get the hell out of the kitchen. You don't get to fabricate rights and deny the rights of others because you just can't handle it? Can't handle the pressure? He says over multiple times, is this real? Is this real? Is this happening? Is this real? Yeah, it's real. You made a very dangerous statement on camera. 2 senators want you to explain yourself right now. By the way, this doesn't look like we have time. I just want to mention it. But the pencil resolution barring Congressman Adam Schiff from accessing classified information is hilarious. I just looked at it because I had it side by side with Rubio's statement. The other one is Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson is like, whoa! You can try to spin whatever you want. You can try to bring up, whatever language you think may help. But, pulling this into a, game about the definition of is just simply not going to work. here is this is a big deal now. Now it's got Rubio's attention. Rubio is getting he's getting tougher from the days of my interactions with Marco Rubio. I think he felt, he had to play the game for a long time. Maybe now he can be himself. He was always kind of establishment, even though he ran as the anti-establishment Tea Party candidate. I'm not going to give that story again. But he was always still establishment. I mean, people, are you aware of the role he actually played in the Florida House of Representatives? It doesn't get more establishment than that. But he ran against Charlie Crist because he didn't believe. Well, it's not that he didn't believe. It was an open secret. Charlie Crist was not a Republican. He wasn't anything. He has no ideology. The man is a bought and paid for empty suit. Always has been. He gets the reins from Jeb Bush. The state looks like it wants solid conservative leadership. He's super conservative. Yeah, that's me. Barack Obama wins his state. I'm a liberal. He licked his finger. He put it in the air to see which way the wind was blowing, and he misread it. He thought Florida was going to become more blue. He has been public. There's public statements to attest to that. So, Rubio saw it. He took it, and capitalized on it. But he writes this in the letter. And there's the full text of the letter here. But that is the statement I'm concerned about. And it's the third paragraph. Whether it's gain-of-function research or selection-structured mutations through dedicated or directed evolution, which he's showing, listen, though he claimed the research is currently exploratory, he detailed how the research would proceed, such as how scientists would inject the mutated viruses into monkeys and collect serial samples from other monkeys who were infected, which, in case you don't remember, Pfizer had major problems with their treatment of monkeys. It's the only thing the left went nuts about. It was a major issue. Dr. Fauci was involved in everything. So what he said, folks, if you listen to it, he can claim he was lying all day. But he obviously has knowledge of what Pfizer is up to because the comments he is making exposes that. All right, give me 1 second. The last of this. All right, so Rubio says whether it's gain-of-function research or selected structured mutations through directed evolution, as Mr. Walker claimed would occur, any effort to make a virus more transmissible and deadlier is careless and dangerous. Further, Mr. Walker stated that Pfizer is willing to engage in this dangerous research because COVID and its variants, quote, are, quote, a cash cow, unquote, for the company, and regulators will go easy on their efforts because a significant percentage of government officials aim to work for Pfizer and other biopharmaceutical companies and do not want to compromise their future job prospects. Anyone who claims that that is not true is full of crap. Full of crap. That most definitely is true. And it is a major problem. The lack of oversight is a major issue in this, all of these, how could I put it? All of these industries have their levels and then it's their degree of incestuous relationships, right? So congressmen always, when they're out, they want to be lobbyists in certain industries, so they don't want to go rough on some of these industries. The same is true of the administrative state and bureaucracies. Same thing when a soldier or an officer in particular, especially a high-ranking officer, leaves the military getting decent pay. They don't want to jeopardize any relationship they may have with MITRE Corporation or some other, or Raytheon or, Lockheed Martin. So they may have done something wrong, but they're not going to bring any of that up. Why? Because they want a job with them, making a not so decent but offensive amount of money, ridiculous income. So this exists. The problem with pharmaceutical companies now is it exists at a level that really is truly unrivaled by anything they've ever seen before in their pharmaceutical history. So they've been embroiled in many scandals over the years, and they never had the power that they have now. In 1 year, Pfizer hired more than 90 lobbyists. In 1 year following the pandemic. in the run-up to this. You know, a cynic would say it would be to ensure that government policy is to continue to take their boosters. Because the variants are going to mutate, and every year, like the flu shot, they'll be able to have a cash cow. Right? Well, now what they have is questions from senators. So we'll just have to see how this goes. All right, and we'll go from there. But yeah, let's I got a lot of questions I got to get to, and it's 1:11. So let's quickly just go over the voter file analysis that we put out. The entire thing is there for local supporters, but I want to talk about some of the surface stuff, and we'll get to, let me see if I got a copy of one here so I can at least put it up. Again, this is part of the benefit of being a locals member. You get, more detailed. You get the reports. You can go over them, and you can compare them. Month to month, year to year, whatever we do. I got to be honest with you guys. I'm a little bit surprised that, hold on. I'm a little bit surprised that there is this many additional records, and I'm going to go over the parameters of it in a second as soon as I find this stupid thing to show. But there's parameters that we do in the non-strict model, and then we do break that down later, which we will. Tighten it up is a better way to say it, to basically show a more realistic electorate. All right, like what an electorate. This returned, for those who don't know, almost 200 million records. There are, of course, no national electorates that hit 199 plus million voters. You know how the voter file is. It is, quote me, dirty. It is always behind. It is not well maintained. We do our best to remove, and that's what the non-strict model is. We're simply removing known or the known deceased, or those who meet the criteria. What would be the criteria? If you have a birthday, folks, that makes you like 150 years old, you're going to be removed. But for those of you who have gotten our voter analysis models before, you've gone through it by age, and there are already ages that are outrageous. And actually, I'm glad I used 150 years old, because I'll go through some of this for you. For instance, there are significant, and I know it's, well, how significant, Rich? Well, if you add them up, it's several percentage points. Or not several percentage points. That there could be those we're not even catching. But for instance, there are hundreds of people. There are thousands of people who are over the age of 110 years old in this. Thousands. And yet they're considered an active record, because that's one part. The parameters of the query are simple. Every state plus the District of Columbia, excluding inactive records, those with a change of address flag, meaning that we know they're a recent mover. And you know how that works if you've been watching for a long time. We don't always know when they've recently moved. All right. And I'll just show this to you real quick. I mean, again, is it something that can make a difference? Well, in close elections, it can. So I don't want to show it, again, local supporters have the benefit of going through this a little bit more, but there's 100 years plus. Look at how many people. Rest assured, that this happens quite a bit. It's sad, but it's true. It happens quite a bit. In fact, 3%, we don't even know how old they are. Why? Because they don't have a valid or at any birth date listed at all. I know that is the state of the voter file. I don't know how else to put it. What we saw this year was a little bit ahistoric. The number, for those who have gotten these now for several years, started out like in the 170 million, something like that. And Then it rose after 2020. We definitely got into the 180 plus million territory. Last year was 190 something plus. We're at additional since the year end one from last year. We're at, or not last year, I'm sorry, about a year ago. Let's just say the 12-month change is about an additional 2 million, which is a little bit high, almost 2 million. It's a little bit higher than normal. Why? Because others get scrubbed. So while there are always millions of younger people, newly naturalized people that are added to the voter rolls every year, we know that there's a scrubbing that or should happen, according to ERIC, right? The ERIC system. They're supposed to be able to catch all of the stuff and scrub it. And, that there's a whole, speaking of cartel, there's a whole group of states that belong to the ERIC voting system. So they're supposed to be basically sharing data to catch whether somebody moved from Florida to North Carolina like Laura and I did, to catch whether Laura got married and her maiden name is no longer her maiden name. Now she has my name, right? To catch, whether so-and-so unfortunately passed away last year. And so the change is more modest typically. At least it has been in our analysis with our modeling, all right? That's something that's a little bit different. What I think is the cause of that, what could, or at least would help answer that, is the increase in those who have been moved from either inactive to the permanent absentee ballot status. That would immediately put them into this. And I think, that the advent of vote by mail makes it easier to create new voter records. I'm just going to put it like that, that are on the board and ready to have a ballot sent to them. So I don't know what else could be the case because, as you know, from the census that came out in 2020, domestically, we are not pumping out babies. All right. It's not happening. So what could fuel, some kind of growth that would not only, offset the alleged scrubbing of dirty records that's supposed to go on, but actually increase it by 2 million fold almost, right? In 1 year, it's typically not that much. And then the other thing that is interesting to me is that there was no significant change between total party known and total inference for states that don't have party registration or registration by party. Since 2016, and I know that this is going to burn the what of some people, but it's true. Since Trump came along, Republicans made significant gains on what was sometimes a 9.8-point national advantage. And it had gone down every year by at least a half a point, all the way till last year when it was D+4. It's still D+4. So this is the first year since we've been doing this, whether it was privately or publicly, because we always did this and we would show people some states. Anyone who polls with us gets this as part of the product. All right. So if somebody conducts a national poll, they get these as part of the product so they can understand why is region the way it is. And I will write an article for locals only explaining there are changes to region and other demographics that are in the analysis that I definitely think are noteworthy. And I'll just say this. I wonder if the Northeast is getting a little bit more Republican while the South is getting more Democratic. Nothing stays the same forever. I'm going to tease it there. And I know some people are going to be, shot, damn, Rich. I'm going to tease it. But there were more inferences and known registrations in states that are typically blue. There were more Republican registration changes. And there were inference changes, which means even if somebody may be an independent or had registered as a Democrat a long time ago, there's something else on their voter file that indicates that they are now a Republican. All right. So I was a little bit stunned at the change from the Northeast, the one area of the country that continues to get more Democratic. The South gained on share of the vote. The South still is yet to totally flex their muscles. I suspect that if Republicans did a better job getting newly naturalized Hispanics registered Republican and to the polls in places like South Texas, even in places like Georgia, where they are not flexing, their political muscles, they're increasing in their share of the population in states like North Carolina, Democrats are maxing out the share of white educated voters, and the working class Hispanic is not. Their population gains are being seen in this, but they're not voting. And they certainly did not vote in the midterm elections. Will they vote in 2024? I strongly suspect. That depends on who the Republican nominee is and what their message is. All right. But the Northeast, was getting to be a pretty pathetic share of the vote there. They're outsized for they're a depressed part of the country, folks, economically and as far as population goes. They're a depressed part of the country, yet I'm looking at their share in the overall, and they're just high. They participate at greater rates. The Midwest has a lot of potential for Republicans that they're squandering, as do some parts of the West. Right now, Democrats look like they're stronger in the Midwest than they are. Ditto to the West, because high participation areas are like Washington, Oregon. California was abysmal, so you got to be careful. It could confuse you a little bit. It's such a big part of West overall. All right. And if you want to know what states account for what, you can see that in one of the detailed methodology statements we released for the Public Polling Project. All right. So, what else do I want to say here? Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it throughout the year. If the Democratic advantage holds, it's definitely the arresting of a trend. And what do I mean by that? Maybe 2 months from now, it dips below 4 and it goes to like 3.6, 3.7, right? Then maybe it was just a temporary slowdown, but the overall trend, long-term kind of trend, is continuing. Registration, again, is more static than affiliation. Registration is more static than affiliation. So it is possible, just for people out there who are saying, well, what about the Gallup partisan affiliation survey? Even our own, going into 2022, Democrats said their advantage from 2020 had been wiped out. Well, that's affiliation. People change their affiliation when a pollster talks to them or surveys are conducted. They change their affiliation far more often than they change their registration. They have to be long-term feeling, I'm a Republican, to be able to go do it. There were, for instance, a lot of people in North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, who would vote still for Democrats in certain local offices, statewide offices, but at the presidential level and the Senate level, they vote Republican. It would have to be over a prolonged period of time that voter says, I'm not voting for Democrat anywhere anymore. And then they will consider, and probably will, change their registration status the next time they get a chance to. But they could change their status long before they ever change their registration. So there's nothing here that's going on. There's nothing here that's going on. How could I put it? There's nothing here that's going that's contradictory to some of these other surveys that we're seeing, like ours, like Gallup's. We haven't done ours yet. I'm curious to see whether Democrats bounce back after the midterms, because they did better than we thought. Everyone thought they were going to do. Not we, everybody. History. We now have 2 ahistoric election cycles, and only one variable has changed. And you all know what that variable is. All right. Let's get to some of these. Let's get to some of these questions. All right. Let me see. That's a good question. So, with the Iowa caucuses, about a year out, all right, or about a year away, is Trump in any danger of not winning? Conventional wisdom, let me just get it, because I'm going to get a link for this response, just to tee it up here. Conventional wisdom says it's a Midwest state that Trump turned from blue to solid red. He will be fine there. But Trump struggled in the caucus format in 2016, and Iowa has a knack for electing the most socially conservative candidate, which Trump probably won't be. Interested in thoughts a year out. It is a year out, and a year out is a long, long time in in politics, which is why I'm about to post this. Let's just call it poll project. That's why I want to get started on this. It says 0 right now because even though I told you I was going to change the form the other day on the public polling project URL to the new form, I didn't until right before the show, so it literally says 0 funded. But in truth, there's probably close to 2, maybe at least 1,500. That's from projects that were funded already or done. They weren't fully funded, but they were done. I called it. And then because that other link was still up there, people were still donating to the old project link. I want to say there's probably at least $1,500 still in there. So it's not 0, but yeah, we do need to get started on it. And I would like a baseline for it. So I'm going to send it out to Rumble, Locals, all of that, Getter. Contribute if you can and share far and wide to help get the project off and running so we can poll nationally. All right, so that's a great question. I'm not sure we can really answer that. I will say this, though. There are a couple of things I do want to answer about it, which is that I don't think Iowa has yet proven to be a solidly red state or Republican state. Some of those races in the November election were much closer. Congressional races I'm talking about, much closer than they should be. Chuck Grassley was on the ballot. He's very popular despite how close the Des Moines Register poll, and I know Ann Seltzer's reputation there, but I mean, once she tabled the poll for the Democratic caucus in 2020, she lost a lot of my respect. Because why? The Pete Buttigieg campaign and CNN saw Joe Biden was down and Pete Buttigieg was pissed. I mean, not even Patrick Murray from Monmouth bought that excuse. That was not a valid excuse to tank a poll. It showed Bernie Sanders would win. Pete Buttigieg was doing better than expected. She was right. But she caved to political pressure. And anytime a pollster does that, I'm out. I'm sorry, I'm out. She's now developing this habit of showing in September and early October these races being close when we go into Iowa, and they're not close. Chuck Grassley was never in any danger of losing. So I think a lot of those congressional Republicans benefited from Grassley being on the ballot. In 2018, Iowa swung back Democratic in 2 districts. It swung back Democratic in every district, but only enough to make a difference in 2. And I'm not sure yet, without MAGA, without Trumpism, states like Iowa and lesser extent Ohio, but Iowa could swing. It's got a very long history of progressive farm ideology. You know, if you know much about the progressive era, there were populist farmers that were roped in to the progressive movement. And they still to this day have done a very good job making sure that those voters can't separate the two. So putting a Barack Obama against a corporate shill like Mitt Romney or Nikki Haley or even Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, I don't know that they could win those states. I've said it before, and I'll say I don't think Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo could win Florida. I don't think they can. And I think Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are not going for them. But they would probably lose Iowa, maybe hold Ohio. And how do you know I'm right by that? Iowa voted to the left of Ohio until Trump. Until Trump. And in 2018, they voted to the left of Ohio as well. Barring Sherrod Brown, which was a disaster for Republicans. I mean, they blew such a winnable race. So I think that we have to keep our eye on those states. Now, Trump had no organization and damn near beat Ted Cruz in Iowa in 2016. I mean, I'm telling you, I know it. I saw it firsthand. Cruz's campaign, brilliantly, and Karl Rove certainly helped. And then he went on Fox News to even say it, because he can't help himself. He likes to take credit and pat himself on the back. He just blamed Cruz for it. But they sent out messages, and precinct captains, because they did have organizations, were going around and telling people that Ben Carson had dropped out and that they should put their caucus support behind Ted Cruz. So that staved off Trump beating him. Marco Rubio did surprisingly well, but I think without that dirty trick, Donald Trump would have beaten Ted Cruz in Iowa. I do. That's how caucuses work. They're not like primaries. They're very different. So then we pivoted and we went to the more moderate states, and Trump cleaned up. We went over that poll in South Carolina the other day. I pointed out numerous flaws with it. It's ridiculous. Horry County is a lock for Donald Trump, and somebody would have to beat him in the conservative highlands of South Carolina, evangelical highlands. I don't know. Once we get into campaign season, he's going to be able to say something to evangelicals nobody has ever been able to say. I overturned Roe v. Wade. I put an end to unfettered abortion. And despite what the Grahams of the world have to say about it, and others, many of whom lost their credibility over the vaccine, by the way, the Pastor Jeffries of the world in Texas, the super church people, a lot of them lost their, you don't love thy neighbor if you don't take the jab. I mean, they all said that crap. Not all of them, but many of them. So I'm not sure. But a year is a long way to go. And I think you have these idiots, these leftists in New York, the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney, they just can't help themselves. If they would just stop and shut up, Trump could probably damage himself more than they would ever be able to damage him. They keep propping him up and helping him. I'm telling you, the more they go after him, the more they're going to help him. His rebound in nomination polls is astonishing. Astonishing. I really thought he was going to maybe permanently hurt himself there. Does he have a DeSantis problem? Technically, yeah, but not if all of those other people we know are running, run. Mike Pompeo's in. It's done. Nikki Haley has told numerous friends, donor friends of mine, she's running. It's happening. One of them even cordially, even though he's not supporting her, still took the meeting. And she told him to his face. And his entire family. She's running. So they'll split that vote. They will. And what vote am I talking about? The urban and metro college educated Republican primary vote, of which it's a minority. Contrary to what some of these polls show, it's like 45, 50%. That's crazy. No, it's not. Ask Josh Mandel and the other guy I'm forgetting already. That's why Vance was able to win the way he did in Ohio. So why Mastriano was able to win. It is not at all a majority. Right? So it's a great question. And I want again, share the public polling project. I put the link to, contribute if you can, share it far and wide. Let's get started on it because I'd like to see get a baseline, an early baseline, because the earlier we can and the more often we can poll, the more we can identify, more granular trends. It is possible to poll people on the effectiveness of the vaccines. We did that for the entire year of 2021. The efficacy of them and the safety of them, we did. We did support and opposition for some of those mandates that you're talking about. Thug Life asked this, by the way. We were, without a doubt, asking things before anybody and asking things that people were not willing to ask. I'm happy to see my friends at Rasmussen now jump on this, on this ship. But for a while there, it was ridiculous. And we had people come to us and say, listen, for my own, one guy just wanted to write an article about the VAERS system, and he was willing to fund a survey to do it so he could have his own survey for the article. And he had come to us. I mean, honestly, I don't think he realized how much it would cost, but he came to us and everybody turned him down. They didn't even give him a quote. They were like, we are not doing it, including some so-called right-wing pollsters that you all know and love. Many of you know and love. All right. When do they vote? On what? You talking about the RNC chair? Well, get ready. You're about to be stabbed in the back today. If I think that's what YouTube, JK Roggs. Oh, YouTube member, JK Roggs. When do they vote? Yeah, can you get more clarification on that, Laura? I imagine he means the RNC, right?
I think so, but I will clarify.
Yeah, that vote may have actually. Is it tonight or did it happen already? RNC vote for chair. It will be. Yeah, it's today. Let me see. UPI did a nice story on it. I don't know why. One good thing DeSantis did that Trump did not was come out against Rona. He should have, and that's a mistake. Even because he doesn't like to lose. And because Rona already greased the palms of a bunch of people, she needs 85 votes. There are votes that are up for grabs still. Absolutely. She says, I'm picking up votes, Dylan said. Would I be shocked that my pillow guy is ahead in the Rasmussen poll? You know, when I did the Turning Point Action poll, it was stunning to see how well he was doing for a while. It did look like he could possibly come out ahead. Younger people didn't vote ahead of older people who were attendees for the straw poll we did. Older people wanted Mike Lindell. The younger Turning Point crowd wanted Harmeet Dillon. So if it's the Rasmussen poll now, and I mean, it's been a little bit, so maybe things have changed, but if you look at the Rasmussen poll, it is the general Republican electorate, which does tend to be older. So it doesn't surprise me that Lindell ended up number one. It does surprise me. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I do see how mathematically it could happen. And that would be incredibly, I'm just going to leave it out because people are voting today and we're just going to leave that alone. I don't think, and as much as you may think he's a soldier for the cause, I don't know if he would be able to be as effective at the day-to-day operations as Harmeet Dillon. That's all. That's really where I'm going with this. But he's a super nice guy. He is. He's always treated me with respect. He's always been, very, what's the word? Complimentary of me. So things I know he said to people. So, I just want to make that clear. I don't have any animus toward him at all. I just think that Harmeet may also understand the challenges the Republican Party faces better. All right, so you could waste a lot of time going after something that isn't going to make a whole hell of a lot of difference. All right. The problem Republicans need right now is that they have no registration and harvesting operation. Sometimes the work that needs to be done to win elections isn't sexy. And Republican donors don't like to give money to them. They love these sexy projects, edgy, sexy projects. And, they think it's something new and it's not. And the truth is, Democrats are doing a better job at taking the unsexy and old and applying it to modern elections. So registration and harvesting goes a long way. A very long way. And Republicans don't seem to understand that. Neither do their donors. Harmeet does understand. So it's a good question. But it is today. That was for JK Rog 18. The vote is today. And I know there's still some that are up in the air. It's just, Rona had expected to win this thing like boom. Now there are definitely people in doubt. But you have to get past her ability to punish people. And because she can hurt them. She can hurt their allies, their states. And I don't see a specific time. I don't. Yeah. And Glenn said, I heard all the rumors about Murdoch and his worthless sons back in the 90s. The rumors were all true. Yeah. Yeah, they were, weren't they? Typical example, Glenn, of them just like wanting to make money off of Roger's idea. And then must have even known that they had some unfair advantage, or their party and their ideology had some unfair advantage, right? Because they decided, I'm going to make money off of trying to close that unfair advantage because there's a need for it. There'll be a desire for it. It's a product. People want their views represented. I'm going to create a house of fiction. I'm going to hire actors. Alison Camerata was a hell of an actor, wasn't she? They're all a bunch of actors. They can hate Trump's guts during the primary, then love him after he wins. The Duceys of the world. Then do everything in their power to stop him from being reelected, and everything in their power to push candidates that aren't on his side, knowing full well he needs them to run in 2024. They are something, man. But right, I mean, it's something too that a lot of people, and you've even heard Hannity say, like, once Shea left, that this was not going to be the Fox News everybody knows, and then he left and he went to go work for Trump at the White House. And that's when the Roger Ailes vision really started to collapse. Yep. Yeah, I did see that they're doing the Senate Election Committee presentation. Look, I told everybody involved that, and I did see the court cases and stuff, but some of that stuff we're trying to go after you and discredit you as par for the course when you're in a lawsuit. It's the name of the game. But I did tell everybody that I know what happens during these shows. People come out of the woodwork. They want to roll in it. They want this. They want that. And I'm not going to entertain it. I am not. You got to see the DMs I get every day from somebody who wants to talk about the report I wrote. And I'm not talking about reporters. I'm talking about people who want to use this as, something. I did that for the plaintiff in that case, Kerry Lake, because it was the right thing to do, because what I saw was legitimately unexplainable other than somebody intentionally depressed turnout on election day. I did not do it because I wanted to be part of this ongoing drama. That's not what I'm not going to allow this to define me. So I see it all the time, but it's just, yeah. What happened with Ed Buck at the Standard Hotel? Ooh, let me say this right. So on Reddit, I think Reddit's a good way to do it. There's a whole YouTube video about it and everything. So there were former employees and the Daily, the LA Times, others came to Adam Schiff's defense. But there were people claiming to be former employees that that basically said that this place was, what was the word? There's a word for it. I think it was a horror show. And then, you got your typical. Where is it? I'm trying to find this. I know it exists. Give me a second. They said, it's just QAnon lies. All right. So it is like the Continental Hotel in John Wick, but for pencil neck pedos instead of badasses. That's what one person said. Yeah, I mean, I guess the pedo thing is, its own charge, but without a doubt, we're talking about old, powerful men who are using, I don't know if pedos, but certainly younger men. All right. And that was part of it. So you had these people say, it's just QAnon. This started because of former employees who said, who made all these different accusations. So, yeah, people said there was, and again, none of this is verified. However, Ed Buck was eventually arrested. And yes, he is Adam Schiff's friend. Even New York Times, a trickle of bodies at Ed Buck's West Hollywood home definitely brings up the lifestyle and the connection. News Punch, Adam Schiff linked Democrat megadonor Ed Buck convicted of 9 counts. By the way, 9 felonies involving the deaths of multiple male prostitutes during a drug-fueled orgy. According to the prosecution, Buck, who is friends with the Clintons and Adam Schiff, would lure black men into his home and then inject them with a lethal dose of meth in exchange for sex. So God knows if they were alive after in some of these instances. I don't know. But without a doubt, this happened. He's convicted. It's done. So while there isn't evidence of some of these allegations, and some of them are wild, like pool chemicals that rot the bodies of their victims. Hell, though, folks, I don't know. I mean, what he really was convicted of is bad enough. So, I mean, if you're willing to do that, are you willing to go further? Like, does it really, even if it's not true, is it far off to believe? Not to me. So it's crazy. And of course he wouldn't answer. He had a Twitter. So many people asked Schiff about that. He had a Twitter meltdown. Did I miss that? Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. Did he publicly address that hotel? No way. Somebody's got that link. I'd love to see it. Because I'd love to see it. You just got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. I'm just trying to read some of this. I mean, some of the stuff he brings up, it's just, I'm just looking at some of the stuff. I'm in the doc over here. Well, you can get to it. I'm just going to add it as a single, all right? Unless you're dying.
I was.
Yeah, there you are. Don't say something that's crazy over there, because some of those posts on, from those people on Reddits and QAnons were nuts about that hotel and Schiff. So just be careful. Go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Oh no, I was just saying. You said, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," and I was like, "I want to know, I want to know, I want to know."
This guy is just somebody who's willing to capitalize politically on anything. Like he cares. I don't want to say that. I don't want to make that comment. No, I'm going to make this one though. So he cares about supposed young black men who are being, gunned down in the street by police in a genocide, right? He cares about that, but he didn't care about his friend luring young black men off the street and injecting them with drugs for money and sex. I mean, I just have a hard time with that.
Yeah, there's no connection.
You can't reconcile that. You either care about the plight of young black men or you don't. When your rich, liberal, old man friends lure them off the street because they're vulnerable, I thought you're supposed to be the champion of the downtrodden and vulnerable in society. They're just so full of crap, Laura. It makes me sick how full of crap they are. And look at some of his tweets right now. Look at the things he's trying to capitalize on to avoid answering from some like even Mike Pompeo attacked him before and said, let's be clear here. He belongs nowhere near the Intelligence Committee. And he's like, let's be clear. I don't give in to bullies. No, you are the bully. You and your friends are the bully. You are the bully. You're the kid who got picked on at school, right, Glenn? Glenn, you know what I'm talking about. This guy was picked last for kickball. All through high school, they flicked the back of his ears and called him Sissy Mary, right? So now the whole world has to pay. So now he's got some power, and he's gonna not, use it to go after bullies like real bullies. He's going to be the bully. And we're supposed to pretend like he was just defending our democracy against the big bad bully, Donald Trump, when he has friends who lure young black men off the street and inject them with methamphetamines so they can kill them and have sex with their dead bodies. You can't reconcile it. My version of reality is true. You got flicked in the back of the ear. Nobody picked you for kickball. Swole one's another one. Right? Kendall, look at the nerd, Kendall. I'm going into the military. I'm going to make a man of myself. But I'm going to pick something that doesn't him and Ted Lou both. I don't want to pick up a gun. I'm going to law school. Forget this. And I'm going to use my law degree to be the biggest bully of them all. By the way, that was an insult to Ken dolls everywhere, and I'm sorry. All right. Yeah. I'll tell you, sadly, the other day, and I don't know if he wants me to share this, but somebody was talking about their neighbor and the sudden adult death syndrome. I'll just say a family member, his neighbor and friend, good friend, just did as well. And when he didn't show up for, so it was like 3 days, nobody had seen him. They live right near each other, right behind. Their backyards are connected. He went over there, opened the door, and he was just dead at the kitchen table. Sad. So it's not like people are going to, it's not like people are pulling this stuff out of their, yeah, they're not. I've never heard about this. Like, I've never heard so many of these instances, and I'm talking about personally, not on social media. This is not the first. Young, seemingly healthy. Well, I'm not going to get into it. All right. Could Iowa trend right of Kansas, maybe even vote to the right of Kansas in 2024? Yes, because Iowa only has a liberal, and I don't even want to call it urban area, that the entire economy basically is built around a university, whereas Kansas and Nebraska opened up there. And we've talked about this a lot. That's a great question, Jonathan. And I think you've been around a while. That the economics is politics. So states like Kansas, Nebraska, right? Where's Gallup? Where are all those financial companies that send you BS, solicitations? Where's their postmark from? When your bank sends you a new card, some of your banks, right? Where are they coming from? Nebraska, Kansas. They let all of these professional class, service sector, but like highly specialized service sector position, industries and companies into their urban areas. Kansas too or Nebraska too is a great example. Everyone blamed Donald Trump for Nebraska to, Joe Biden carrying it. The truth is, whether you're talking about from Romney to McCain, from McCain to Bush, it had been trending Democrat for a long time. And that's what happens when you put your own lobbyist and corporate interest ahead of those who are actually your voting base. Like Republicans, to include Brian Kemp, he's just the most recent, but Republicans have been doing this in the South for years. The Barbers did it for years. There's a mini Tinseltown in Atlanta right now. Black Mafia family. Runs on Showtime right now. I believe it's Showtime. Season 2. Right? It's doing very well. People were waiting for it to come back. Where's that filmed? Where's the company based who's responsible for production of that filmed? Where is Vice? Where are all the production companies who do Vice documentaries telling you how great the Ukrainians are and how much of there's no Nazi problem in Ukraine, but the insurrection was a big problem. We have super Nazi problems here in the United States. Where are all those? Atlanta, Georgia. Right. They're all in the mini Tinseltown we know of Atlanta, Georgia. North Carolina has been resisting it for a long time, although they have the research triangle. They have been resisting it, but the Democratic governor, Cooper, he got a deal to smack Apple right in Wake County. So that is a serious problem for Republicans. Why? Because they're still going to have Chinese people who jump off their buildings at lunch put together the phone. They're going to bring in young snobs from Yale and MIT to work at that location in Wake County. And Doug Ducey did it to Arizona. If it wasn't for state-to-state migration, Arizona would be blue right now. It's only from people fleeing California, fleeing New York, fleeing Illinois, that Republicans are getting these new voters and working Hispanics. If it was up to Doug Ducey and John McCain, Phoenix would be filled with Big Pharma, filled with Nike. And again, believe me, Nike is still going to get their stuff assembled for the low cost of a bowl of rice. But they will bring in the yuppies to tell you how to, sell to the NBA, to sell to urban America. And that is what has happened to that place. I should have uploaded the video. You know what? When I was in Phoenix before the holidays to do that, to testify, I was at a decent hotel. Not like some ridiculous hotel, but a decent hotel in a decent neighborhood. I ran out of pods. And the one pod that I did have on the plane, they don't take well to altitude changes, bursted in my pocket. So I was like out of vapor pods, and I'm like, I got to go. I just got to the hotel. I'm going to dump my bags, and I'm going to go and take a walk. I could stretch my legs a little bit, go find a gas station that sells my pods or a tobacco place or a vaping place, whatever. I walk in, and this is a residential area that I had to walk through to get around. And this is what I found. Can you see what that is? This is a nice area. Can you see what that is? I almost stepped on it in the dark. It's a hypodermic needle. This isn't a ghetto. It's not a slum. Laura, I was on the phone with you and our children. I'm like, holy crap. Hold on, guys. Hold on. It's a hypodermic needle. There were like 3 of them. In front of what looked to be like, the entrance to subdivisions for nice neighborhoods. And there's a main road, with all the shopping malls and, whatnot. Hotels, restaurants. And I took a side one because I was trying to follow Google Maps, talking to Laura and the kids. And I was trying to find a lot of times gas stations have one that I could deal with. And I was cutting through a residential area to get to the other side of that road instead of walking all the way around. And just, it was what? Like a child could pick this up. So that's what happens, when you put that crap first, you bring the rest. And don't get me wrong, there's a major problem with drug use in white suburbia. There is. In fact, that's where all the money is. I mean, that's where I've asked this before, but I haven't gotten an answer. Most Trump voters I know here in Ohio have flipped to DeSantis, but you say Trump is stronger in Midwest. I'll be honest, Casey, I don't know where you are in Ohio. It's possible that what you're saying or your experience is representative of the area of Ohio that you're in. Like Dolan, I think that was his name, by the way, did better than Vance in some areas, but MAGA is still going to run it up in like the Mahoney counties, the Trumbull counties, the Wood counties, the Southeast used to be old Democrat Appalachia areas, the suburbs outside of Toledo, the working class areas outside of Toledo. Those are not going to go to DeSantis. Trump is going to kill it there. Sometimes our experiences aren't representative of it. So DeSantis is going to get the educated voter that voted for the Dolans and the, we know this panned out. This happened. So Ohio is one of those states. I think it is more Republican, than, or I would say it's more willing to stay Republican even without a huge influence from Trump, but it still has to have that MAGA appeal. Otherwise, it will go back to being a very narrow state. There will, because those working class voters I just talked about, the old Cuyahoga machine is gone. There's still a lot of votes that Democrats can pump out there, but the real damage they'll do is like Sherrod Brown, where he does better in places like Youngstown, Mahoney, stuff like that. And that's, those aren't going, especially, and I hate to say this, but Glenn, you're here. I know, you know what I'm talking about. When the campaign gets in full vigor, it doesn't matter whether DeSantis intends to follow these people or not. These areas that we're talking about right now, when they hear about the people who have given Ron DeSantis money, they're going to recoil. You and I and most of us here maybe a lot of us know about it already because we're politicos and we care about this stuff. These are the people that voted for Barack Obama because of that video, that television ad. Mitt Romney killed my wife. She had cancer, and he came and took the plan away, or took the company away. Didn't even offer us, a decent severance package. And those are the people that, are going to recoil when they hear this stuff. And he's going to go hard at him for it. I mean, you know how Trump is at painting people. I think it's a bad thing for the party. I do. I think it's a bad thing for the Republican Party. And I think it's a gift to the Democratic Party. But we don't even know yet. We'll see. Right now, they're just pressuring. But DeSantis is going to have to look at the field and say whether or not, one, does he want to do it? Because if he loses, his career is dead. It's dead. The risk DeSantis would be taking is very high when he's young. And he could just especially if Trump loses, then that would be like the best thing that could happen to DeSantis. Bad thing for the country, arguably, but good thing for DeSantis. Really good. But he'll have to look, and he'll have to say how many people are kind of like in my lane, where I'm going to try to pull some Trump people away, but I'm really going to go after the rest of those people who are moved on, and weren't really loyal to Trump. If that fails, because there's a Nikki Haley, or Mike Pence, or Mike Pompeo, all of which we expect to be in, then he's finished, and he's finished forever. Because even if Trump loses, the damage he'll have done to him during that primary, I mean, many of these people will never recover from what Donald Trump did. Ted Cruz will never be president because he decided to do what he did. Scott Walker was one of the most promising governors, if not even more promising than Ron DeSantis back in 2014, 2015, 2016. He's finished. Why? He decided to, the whispering is in his ear, built him up. And he didn't realize, he didn't realize the political dynamic or the blowback that he would get from it. By the way, George Will's wife was his top advisor. Yeah, I'll tell you, Fokker says, Gaylord Fokker, I live close to Iowa, have many relatives there, and can tell you that Ernst, acting like a closet liberal, is turning people off from the GOP. This is what I'm talking, it's exactly what I'm talking about. Like Chuck Grassley has never been like that. So he was on the ballot, and people were like, oh, Chuck is there, I love him, and I got to vote Republican this time, I don't like what Democrats are. But then you have people like Joni Ernst, who won by 8 points her first time around, was sitting there with the gun, right? Acted so tough and folded like an omelet. For everything from trans to chemical castrations. That's stupid. And here's, we're about 5 minutes over, but this is a good one. Owen, have you read Max Weber yet? Come on, buddy. I've been pondering. So Rich has written about freedom and liberty, requiring virtue and morality in society to keep those qualities or even achieve them. Well, I believe that's essentially capitalism is freedom. It's free exchange and cooperation between individuals and groups. Well, if freedom requires morality and virtue, and capitalism equals freedom, then doesn't it make sense that capitalism also requires virtue and morality? Yup. But explore that more. Man, Owen, we should do a whole locals thing on that. And I'll bust out the spirit of capitalism. I will. Because without virtue and morality, there is no difference between capitalism and the simple pursuit of wealth that has been going on forever, right? There has always been a market, and people have always been exchanging currency or products or whatever in these marketplaces with supply and demand. So that's not what makes capitalism. And we forgot that because it's an American invention. It really is. Because we failed to define what it was leading up to the American experiment. So people are just assumed. And that's what Max Weber tries to tackle. Well, what is it about Americans? And by the way, Alexis Tocqueville, he cited a lot, because, and he's done this as well. I mean, they had the benefit of looking at something that no longer exists anymore, which is America at that point. And this is something different. It is. And this is just not the same. So what is it? And it was virtue and morality. So freedom does require morality and virtue. And so does capitalism. Otherwise, it's not capitalism, which is why I call it hologram capitalism, right? And that's, you should, I could go on forever about this. People tried to bring this back, this idea, in like a renaissance. And there were people who kind of were on to what I was on to, which is government's always going to have a place to step their foot in, especially in the economy. There's the fairness, and it's not fair, and fair shares, and this one's left, to fend for themselves, and this one's greedy. So they came up with this idea of something called virtue capitalism. But unfortunately, it didn't take off. And even more unfortunate, the fact that they felt that they had to come up with that idea. That is capitalism. It should have just been called, don't add the word virtue to the front of it to make it something separate from capitalism. Capitalism required morality and virtue. It did. And that's why, again, for people who don't know, it's on Max Weber, the Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. It's a must read. And unfortunately, if any of you are undergrads, you're going to get screwed. We spent 2-3 days on Max Weber. I had already read it. I loved it, because I was older when I went back to study that stuff. I did other things before, and I wanted to change. So that's how I did it. But I already knew who Max Weber was and what the Protestant ethic was. But then Karl Marx introduction to his stupid 65-page pamphlet, and you're going to spend almost 10 days on it. It's just crazy. When my copy of the Protestant ethic is 300 and something pages. So, why would academia dedicate so much time to a shorter, crappier pamphlet that doesn't have the virtues and moralities and principles espoused in our social contract, as opposed to something that's a much larger body of work, much more complicated body of work? But yeah, Weber says that's the problem. And he was right. Wasn't he right, Owen? Honestly, he said this better start to be taught in the kindergartens across America, or they're going to forget what capitalism really means. And guess what? We did. Because now we look at it and we associate it with greed, the pursuit of wealth for its own sake. And that's not what it was. It's tragic. Damn, it's 2:08. I got a boogie. Tragic, tragic. Again, locals, if you haven't seen it yet, don't forget to grab. I wonder if there's a way I can set. Can we research whether there's a way, people who are a member on YouTube or something, if there's any way we could just share that with them? I don't know. But yeah, for now, locals, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Go check out the voter analysis. It's national. Now that things are up and going too, we'll probably wind up tightening the restrictions on the parameter to get it to 160 to 175 million, something that's realistic and possible, right? And then you'll see how things change. Maybe they won't. Maybe they won't change all that much. Typically they do, but we'll see. Vote by mail may have changed that as well. We'll find out. Also, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Man, good stuff. Tragedy of Great Power Politics. John Mearsheimer. Yes, John, that's your old edition. Right now we're on the strategies that states pursue for power. All right. And that's chapter 5, I believe. Part 1. Now this will be part 2. But after this one's done, we'll get another one before we read Myths of Empire by Jack Schneider. So big locals community, and we are starting to expand the size of the book club. But I really want to tell people, if you haven't checked it out yet, check it out, because we are learning a lot. And we're having great discussion, and it doesn't always get, it's not always restricted to, it's not always restricted to the topic at hand. Sometimes it brings us into other areas, but it's so important for the things that are going on today, right? So we had that clip of Zelensky earlier. Did I even play that clip of Zelensky? I didn't play it the other day. I'll leave you with this clip of Zelensky, all right? And then we'll roll into the music and the outro, all right? But this will be a good thing for you to listen to, 1 minute and 17 seconds, while you're pondering whether you'll show up for the book club on Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, for everyone, as always, thanks for watching. Oh boy, I almost forgot this. One more before we go. Almost did that. All right, remember, even though it says tpplikesgold.com, TPP likes silver and TPP likes platinum. Right now, GOLDCO, our friends at GOLDCO, have a tremendous offer going on. And if you use the tpplikesgold.com, fill out that form. If you use the link, fill out that form, you will get those offers. Fill out the form. That coin thing is going to pop up. You call them before they call you. Then when you get the transaction, not only are you going to get the added benefit that they're offering people right now for our show, but you'll also get a free, very cool coin. All right. But we didn't have time to go over all that economic news, but you know how we feel about it. Could be a great, this is a great deal. And this time, the timing could be a great opportunity. Silver, they'll talk to you absolutely about silver over anything right now. You're the customer, but they understand what I'm talking about. And platinum if you can. But you could get up to $10,000 or even more in free silver when you sign up with GOLDCO. All right. But it's an opportunity to protect your retirement savings with gold and silver. It's a rare opportunity. So don't miss out on it. It's tpplikesgold.com, tpplikesgold.com. And as always, thanks to all our other sponsors, fieldofgreens.com. Use promo code TPP. That'll get you 15% off. And TPP10 at 4patriots.com will get you will get you 10% off your site-wide order. But of course, use the 4patriots.com / there it is. Thank you, Laura. 4patriots.com / TPP. That's the best deal going right now. That's the People's Pundit 3-month survival kit. All right. Laura and I have several of them. And you will get 10 really cool free gifts. All right. Man, that's a wrap. I'm going to leave you in the just stimulating presence of Vladimir Zelensky. And I'll see you soon, folks. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers.
It is obvious that American business can become the locomotive that will once again push forward global economic growth. We have already managed to attract attention and have cooperation with such giants of the international financial and investment world as BlackRock, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs. Such American brands
BlackRock,
as Starlink
JP Morgan,
Westinghouse have already become part of our Ukrainian way. Your brilliant defense systems, such as HIMARS or Bradleys, are already uniting our history of freedom with your enterprises. We are waiting for Patriots. We are looking closely at Abrams. Thousands of such examples are possible, and everyone can become a big business by working with Ukraine in all sectors, from weapons and defense to construction, from communication to agriculture, from transport to IT, from banks to medicine. And I believe that freedom must always win.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette.